Hello and welcome to Movie Phone. For Blockbuster Shrinks, press 1. Blockbuster Shrinks is playing now.
All right, we're back for another one. The Redhead Family Therapy Guy,
And a mic.
and we're podcasting. We're
We are.
having good discussions. I can't tell you how excited I am to talk about Tremors, dude. I was blown away. Like I had maybe seen it again, like our kids had watched it, so I think I must have watched it with them.
Have you seen it growing up?
I did. Yeah,
Oh,
100%. Yeah, as a kid, I saw it. I remember really liking it and being like, it was like squishy and gross, but awesome too at the same time. But before we get deep into
Sure.
talking about the film, I have to ask you,
Uh-oh.
how many what is the proper terminology? How many degrees it is from you to Kevin Bacon?
Oh,
Is my
how many
first
degrees?
question. How many degrees? Because
I'm
it's
sure
four.
where you're going with
It's
that.
4 for me. I have
Okay,
4
how
degrees.
would I do it? Help me, because I
you have you met anybody famous? Because you know everybody is within 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. And so I met
I
somebody
remember
famous,
doing it as a
so
kid and thinking it wasn't very many degrees. So my
you met
uncle
you have a
Mark
you
has
have a
worked on many movies for
all right,
Universal.
you're gonna have
I'm
that.
sure it's I would think my uncle Mark, and then if he hasn't met Kevin Bacon, then I'm sure he's worked with someone who has.
No,
So
you
I
have to be
don't
more
know.
specific. You have to pick somebody specific. How about this? We know that your cousin met Legolas, right? Didn't she tell us the story about how she met Legolas?
She's met
Isn't that who she told me? Because
she's met
she's on
all
the
of
island.
the Pirates actors.
All right, so what's Legolas's name?
Orlando Bloom.
Orlando Bloom.
Yes.
So you've got a connection to her and she does to him. So let's see. All right, dude. Let's see.
I'm sure
Orlando Bloom was in Pirates of the Caribbean with Dominic Scott Kay, who was in Loverboy with Kevin Bacon. So you have 4 connections to Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. If not, so then what would it be if my uncle has worked on a movie with him?
Oh, well, then it would be direct. It would be 1.
So then I'll go with 4, but I could ask my cousin Heidi. She's coming soon to visit. Worked with him. But yeah, I remember doing it as a kid, and I can't remember. I remember it wasn't very many, but who hasn't done that at some, especially our age, right?
Right.
That was really
the Oracle. Thing. The website's called the Oracle of Bacon.
Oh, is there a website?
Yeah, that's how I'm doing it.
That's cool. Yeah, when I was a kid, there was no website,
and
I knew of.
Well, and it's based on a theory that everybody is within 6 degrees of everyone. Like that's the theory.
That's cool.
For whatever reason, it became organized around Kevin Bacon. So I'm glad to hear that you're only
John. Let's see, how many degrees am I from John? I think 1.
You have a pretty close degree of connection.
So this is random. I was just thinking about this the other day. I remember as a kid, right there. So there wasn't internet. I'm sure. Well, I think internet was in the 80s and 90s, right? But I didn't know about internet.
It didn't really become a thing till like late 90s, late.
And 90s. I remember the first time we got internet, it was dial-up, right? And so you had to, and so and no one could be using the phone, right? Otherwise, it'd kick you off the internet, unless you're like a well-off family and you had 2 phone lines. Yeah,
we had 2 phone lines. We had 2. We weren't well off.
We did at one point for a short period of time.
My brother and I had our own phone line upstairs.
Oh, you guys are fancy.
And so we do that.
We did at one point. I can't remember why. My mom ran a business out of our house too. She did a home daycare, so maybe that's why we had it. But I remember the first time we got it, and it was, what was it, like 64 kilobyte per second, I think was like a fast dial-up connection.
You'd like I remember being at college and downloading like a picture of a combustion engine, like
And it
a
just
car
would like
engine.
slowly like
It took like an hour, and then it was this like really basic GIF of like an explosion and the piston going like.
Yep. And we remember like you just watch the screen, it like slowly from the top down, just inch or not even inch, but like centimeter
like a
by
pixel
centimeter.
line, like a pixel line at a time, like an old like printer. You know, the old printers that'd be like
Watching these old movies kind of make me think about these things. But I was thinking about this the other day just because we had like a promotional price we have fiber optic internet through AT&T, and the year came up, and so my wife called and they're like, oh yeah, for $20 more a month you can go up to a gigabyte per second download.
That sounds fast.
And I'm just thinking, well, you know, like I remember the first high-speed internet I had was a megabyte per second download speed, and then we had 3 megabytes per second.
I don't think I've ever paid attention to like.
And now, you know, our last one was 300 megabytes per second, which I thought was incredibly fast. And now they're like, oh yeah, for $20 more a month, you can have HBO Max for free, and we'll up it to 1,000 megabytes per second. And I'm just like, whoa! And I just think about that, like mind blown.
Like, what do you need it for? I guess if you're a gamer and you want to make sure you're killing first, then your dial-up speed or your
definitely is
download speed would be
faster. I think if you had a big family where everyone's on all the time,
I feel like 5 people
that probably helps.
People. Yeah.
But for $20, I was like, I mean, HBO Max is $15 a month all by itself. So for $5 a month, I could up it.
I think
700 megabytes.
I think when we gamed together, I feel like you were a little bit quicker because you've got the newer Xbox. I felt like yours
the
would
Xbox
like
is probably why it's faster. I don't know that was internet.
The dial-up or whatever.
The dial-up. But anyways, I'm sorry, that was off topic. I just it cracks me up sometimes when I do things and I think back as a kid and I'm like, oh man, when I was a teenager and I had dial-up, I thought it felt so awesome, but it was so
dude, emails were such a big deal.
Oh yeah, remember the You've Got Mail? Who was that?
You've Got Mail.
Yeah,
it was AOL.
AOL, thank you. I was like, I'm AT&T stuck in my mind. I was like, it's another A. What was it?
Yeah,
AOL.
That's a company.
And you used to get the discs in the mail. Do you remember those?
For the updates,
you get for the 500 minutes free or whatever, or 1,000 minutes. You get the discs all the time.
Dude, AOL was one of those companies that blew up and then disappeared. I think it's still around. I feel like I've seen an AOL email. My grandpa.
I think the emails still exist, but I think it's probably bought over by someone and they just retained the domain or something.
Sure. So I wanted to comment since I meant to comment on this before we move on from the 6 degrees, just so you know, just so people know. I thought it was kind of fun. Kevin Bacon has actually turned the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon into a nonprofit. So,
oh really?
If you're into that kind of thing,
what does it support?
Yeah, I was trying to it's a Kevin Bacon turned the 6 degrees game connection to him to other Hollywood actors to a nonprofit aimed at using everyday activities to connect people and causes. So I guess it connects people and causes.
Cool. Okay.
Looking to find.
So it's like
dig into it, but
a volunteer connection.
Yeah, it looks like
kind of like our church. What is our church one called?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's not good. How dare you?
I should know. We work for the welfare department. We should know this.
I think I've got the app. Let me see.
That is not good.
Just serve.
Yeah, it's like it sounds like it's like that, like the Just Serve website.
It does. Yeah, it's
cool.
Yeah. So and it's 6degrees.org if anybody's interested. I thought we'll shout out to. I thought it was cool that he had a nonprofit. But yeah, dude, Tremors. What an incredible movie! I mean, seriously, man. It is good. It is so good.
It's one of the
things I noticed, the thing that jumped out to me, because I remembered the movie, and now I'm more of a movie person and pay attention to movies and notice things. There is everything. It is like an economy of images and words and everything. Like even the opening scene, I realized the opening scene where he's peeing off the cliff. I'm like, oh, they're showing you one of the ways that they can kill, or the final way that they kill the last Tremor beast. What do they call them?
Graboid.
Graboids. That's it.
And then so they have shriekers later on in the series. But anyways,
I didn't get
seven
past
Tremors movies.
I didn't get past the first one, man. I didn't get past the first one.
Growing up, I feel like my family was kind of that way, where we would watch these kind of what you might consider like a cult classic, and then if they ever had sequels that were horrible, we would just watch them all the time.
Mm-hmm. But like there was so many foreshadowing. So there was that foreshadowing. There was like the Coke machine foreshadowing. There was the truck moving.
So you mean the opening scene was
the opening
foreshadowing just because they run to the cliff to kill the last one?
Yeah, like they set everything up. Like everything in the movie is set up. You know what I mean? And other movies do this all the time too. But I guess because I'm more movie aware, like it jumped out at me. And the thing was, like, sometimes other movies, it'll just be like, it'll randomly show you like a hammer sitting in a garage, you know.
Sure.
But this one, like, everything had a purpose to show you the foreshadowing. It wasn't just like, oh, we have to show you that there's a tractor because we're going to use it later to get them out of paradise or whatever it is. You know what I mean? But like this movie did it efficiently and meaningfully, like purposefully. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think foreshadowing for me is like subliminal, because I don't recognize foreshadowing very well at all in movies. But then I'll piece together, oh, like this is going to happen. This happened, for example, with the new Obi-Wan show, where I was like, oh, okay, the Inquisitor chick is probably from like one of the Padawans from the Jedi Temple. And I was telling one of my friends this. I was telling Brad this, who we've interviewed before. And Brad was kind of like, yeah, like, have you watched the first opening scene of the show? And I was like, what do you mean? And I go and watch it, and it's like, it's foreshadowing. It's the little girl in the Jedi Temple, who obviously is probably this Inquisitor grown up. And I'm just like, oh, I thought I was smart, but no, it was already there. I just, like, so that's how my brain works.
I'll lean over to Nicola. I'll lean over to Nicola in the movies and be like, we'll be watching a movie. I'm like, he's going to die by the shotgun. And she's like, what? And then it'll happen. She hates it when I do it. I'm like, oh, this is going to happen, because like they always show you.
I would be the what in that scenario. I'd be like, what?
But the thing that was cool to me though is that it wasn't random. Like it was, because sometimes movies do it and it's so obvious that they're just showing you something because it's going to play later. It's like, I guess it's a movie thing. I don't know like movie theology, so I don't know like what the rules are, but as a viewer of movies, like I've picked up on they do that. But the thing that I was impressed with Tremors is that it was like all purposeful. Like it wasn't like the scene of them going to push trash around, like had meaning and purpose in them moving forward. It wasn't just like, oh, we had to do this trash scene because, you know, we're going to use this bulldozer to get them out of paradise later.
Yeah, it was part of the story.
Yes, exactly. And so I just thought it was really cool that they did all this foreshadowing, but that it all really had meaning.
Yeah, so it's kind of like they're using the character building part of the movie to foreshadow.
Yes, economically and purposefully.
Yeah.
So that's
seamless. True. That's true.
It's seamless, and it's good, you know. The other cool thing that I found as I was doing like some, you know, digging around about Tremors, which I think is hilarious. The premise of this movie, and I don't remember who the writer was or if it was the same. I think it was the same writer that was the director. So this is hilarious, dude. The whole premise of this movie essentially came out of like the lava game, because they were like, hey, what if a person was stuck on a rock and they couldn't get off of it? Right? Like that's the whole premise. Like, so that first major scene where Kevin Bacon and his buddy are stuck on the rock with Earl, with
Valentine and Earl.
Valentine and Earl. That's fantastic.
I don't remember the scientist's name though.
I love their rock paper scissor game.
Oh, it's constant. And then I love at the end when they're rock paper. So all the time they're rock paper scissoring to get out of something. And then at the end, they're rock, paper, scissoring to do the thing. Right. Like they always, they always want to get out. And then finally at the end, you see that.
Well, Kevin Bacon flips it, right? He flips it, right?
Yeah.
He's all like,
Well, they both want to go. They both want to be the hero.
right.
I
Or
think
they
that's
both.
really cool.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, it's a huge arc. It's a huge arc in theirs. But yeah,
I
so the whole premise of the movie was like essentially the lava game, which I think is great because like we
yeah,
all relate to that.
and that's so funny. I never thought of it that way, but as a kid, for whatever reason, I always loved that rock scene where they're basically pole vaulting from rock to rock. For
Yeah, that's
whatever
what they do.
reason, I always thought that was so cool.
Well, because
And
it
I
plays
remember as
right.
a kid, like I would always go and get a stick and try to do it. And it's a lot harder to do.
It's
And it
so yeah, I
looks like
thought that too.
booby.
As I was watching, I was like, okay, first of all, that monster could totally like, gush up the ground. And then I was like, and second, I'm like, that is a lot harder, I bet, than it looks. You know
Well,
what I
and
mean?
I was thinking, especially so as a kid, and maybe this is we could do this one too if we want. There's a new one, so I don't know if we'd want to do the original. But as a kid, I remember watching Dune, right? So Dune
Mm-hmm.
was like early
Oh shit, yeah.
80s. And I remember watching Tremors later and thinking, wow, this is like a spoof on
Dune.
like yeah, like the worms,
How
the
cool would that be?
sandworms in Dune.
How cool
But the lava thing makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, how cool that's true. How cool would it be though to be do like a real stripped down version of Dune? I wonder if anybody's ever tried that, like a really stripped down. They'll
Oh, I
take
bet you could find
stories
something on YouTube,
that
probably.
well, but I wonder if there's a movie out there that stripped down the plot for Dune and like made it about a town or something or
I don't. Well,
versus
I mean, I don't
Interstellar
know.
or
Maybe.
whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
I love. Yeah, but that's all. It always, whenever I watch Tremors, I think of the sandworms in Dune. What's the name of the planet? Starts with an A. I think I can't think of the name of the
something
planet.
rack, Atarak,
Oh yeah,
Arterak,
yeah. Oh shoot, I don't know
Aztec.
why my brain can't think of it.
Yeah, I know.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
but anyways, I always think of those. I'm like, oh, they're graboids on Dune.
Except for they
They're
don't have
huge. Dune ones
they
are
don't have
huge though.
things that shoot out of their throat and grab
Yeah,
you.
they don't. They
Worm
don't. They look more
tentacles.
like like oh, what's the Sarlacc pit, right? They look more like a Sarlacc pit from from
Return
episode
of the Jedi.
6. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was fantastic that the whole premise of the movie was a love game. I thought it was like so good, so good, and it's true. Like you've got another
Oh
just like an
yeah.
and
Even
they
when they're on the houses, right? And on the store, you get that
mhm,
impression. Oh, it's like, how do we get from
right. How do we
point
get
A
from
to point
here to
B
here?
without making noise, but really without touching the ground.
Right. Well, and the cool thing too is like I love the thing that's so good about this well, one of the things that jumped out about this movie too is like they jump right in to the story. Like
Yeah, it's quick.
there isn't like a lot of other movies. You'll get a lot of they'll take time, which is appropriate, to like introduce everybody and get you acquainted to the ensemble. But in this show, it like the beasts start eating people right away. I mean, I think the um I'm trying to think of like who died first. Was it that? I mean, well, there's the one guy that's like up in the tower.
Yeah, he was the first one that we know of. The old guy with the Winchester
Yeah,
shotgun or
where he just
rifle with
like
the
where he like
rifle.
died of dehydration because he refused to
Yeah.
come down.
And then I think it was the road workers and then maybe the doctor and
No,
his
it was
wife.
no, it was Fred and his sheep first because that's the head that they find
Oh yeah, the
underneath
guy.
that.
That's right. I forgot
Right,
about that one.
then the workers, and then cattle are missing, and then the couple, and then another worker, and that's when the road gets like crushed out because they go
Yeah,
there.
that's when they get the tongue thing, like
Yeah.
one of the worm
Yes.
things
Yeah, it gets
attached to his
around the
axle.
yeah, yeah, which I thought it was hilarious that that actor Victor Wong was in this like after we just saw
Yeah.
Big Trouble in Little China. His death might have been it was one of the more gruesome ones
Yeah, he
in his
actually you see
story.
him get like
Yeah, like
eaten. Where
yeah,
most of the other stuff is kind of hidden, right?
it's
You
off
don't.
camera a little bit.
Yeah, but this one you see him like he is
He's
consumed.
like, yeah, he did a great job. I remember like watching the scene. I'm like, he's really doing that well. Like he's like inside the mouth of the thing. And
Uh-huh.
I love the old crap, I lost my train of thought while I was saying that. I love the old Oh, just the old special effects. I remember just really enjoying like
I
the
love it too. I love
animatronics and like the puppetiness of it. I thought it
well
was
just
just
kind
cool.
of the little things. Like I love the names. I love the
Gravities.
interaction, like their their friends kind of, it's the paper rock scissors. I love the interactions between the characters, and then I love just the setting. It really
Mhm. Oh, it's
reminds
so
me
good.
of growing up, and I think it's because my cousins lived up in Big Bear,
Mhm.
out in Sugarloaf, and it just there was like nothing out there. Like you talk about small towns, and there's real, and so I think and it's deserty up there, so it really reminds me of being a kid again. And
Yeah.
then I love how they come back to the general store to make a call, because the only phone is this
Is
pay
that the general
phone,
store? Yeah,
and it
that's
doesn't work,
great.
right? I'm
It's
just
great. Well,
thinking no one has a phone, but it's a town of 14
yeah,
people, right?
it's like you're in paradise. I love that that's paradise, and that I love that it's like it's in this valley and it's closed off from the world. And I love that you learn that from like the preppers. They're like,
Yeah.
this is why we chose this place is because it had like superior like protection or whatever. The thing that's cool about the ensemble of the cast or the town or whatever too is that like it really holds up well, right? Like this movie's, a couple decades old or 30 years old or something like that. And it holds up well because like every one of those people in in the show are like people in small towns. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like you've got this like, foreign store owner, you've got like the prepper, like anti-government people, you've got like the old couple that's like building their dream home or whatever. You got the annoying
It kind
kid.
of touches, yeah, like on archetypes that you would
Yeah,
in
right? Like, it's
life,
just like
right?
it's like people in a small town, and there's a goodness about them all too, a cooperation, in
Well,
defeating
coming
the
together in the
biggest,
face of
Mhm.
adversity, right? Which is
Right.
always a really cool sentiment, like in movies. I always like
Right.
when that
Me too.
happens.
Yeah. Well, and there's just an interdependence in their own community, right? Like there's
Sure.
if they're like the 20 people in paradise, then they're kind of beholden to each other, And Valentine and what did you say? Valentine and Earl,
Earl, yeah.
are like the handyman, do everything
Well, and
guys
it's
in
so
the
funny,
town.
like it starts with them just wanting out, right?
Mhm.
They're doing these hard jobs. And I remember turning to Heather, when I watched it this last time, especially in the beginning when they're like, oh, and they're doing the fence, right? They're
Uh-huh.
building this fence. I remember turning to Heather and I'd be like, man, they want out. I want that. Like, I want to do that.
You just want to go do
I just want
you
to
want to
be
just go
out
do
in the
fence work
country.
in
Yeah.
the
Doing
blistering
labor.
heat where
Well,
there's
I
no
love the
water.
heat. I
Oh,
grew up in
that's right.
Vegas,
You
so
do.
I
You do
love the
love the
heat.
heat. That's right.
But just it was beautiful. Like that's
Yeah.
beautiful just to be out there
Well, and that was
in the
another
fresh
aspect.
air.
That's another aspect of the movie that they do such a great job. I mean, the setting and set of the movie is just great. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like the long shots, the wide shots. I mean, even the wide shot of like the cliff when he's like peeing or whatever. And they do a great job with the cinematography
Well, and
of
it's interesting
romanticizing the
because
location.
it's supposed to be Paradise, Nevada, right? And I'm like, and in these scenes, I'm like, oh, okay, I could see maybe northern Nevada,
Yeah, sure.
like there's some greenery, like high desert. And we looked it up, and it's filmed in California, which makes sense because there are some similar areas. But I was like, I don't see that I've not been to any part of Nevada where I've seen that, at least that kind of type of landscape. And I've not been all over. I mean, Nevada's a big state, but I I just kept thinking, man, I would love that, but they want out, right? They want
Mhm.
out, and the jobs they're doing, I'm just thinking, I don't mind doing labor.
Yeah, they were just tired of that grind, right?
Hmm.
I love that too. There's a Valentine has this total like Uncle Rico quality around, like the
Women,
romanticized
yeah.
idea of women, right? Like this real detached, unrealistic. I love that, like the scene where it's very much towards the end where he like gets in the truck and he like
And he
grabs all the
tears up,
photos and like throws away
or squishes them up and
yeah, or
throws
whatever.
them.
Is she Finn? Is that the scientist? Is that Finn?
Her name? Is that what
Like,
you're asking?
oh, no, sorry, is it Rhonda? Is that her name in the movie,
I
Rhonda?
can't remember what
I'm
her
looking
name
at the
is.
picture. I'm like, but it does not look like her, but I think it is. So Finn Carter is the actor or
Okay.
actress, and Rhonda Lebeck, is the scientist or whatever in the show, which is the love interest for Valentine. But the other thing that's fantastic is of course, the camaraderie and friendship between Valentine and Earl, and their stuckness. It's also funny too. Did you catch this? That the annoying kid Melvin, like we have no idea who his parents are or his family.
I
Like we make
know.
assumptions. You make
You don't,
assumptions
I don't think he
that
has
he's with the
anyone.
preppers, but he's just this
No.
annoying kid in the town.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Isn't
Like
that great?
like
It's
you
like,
kind
wait,
of think,
we
oh, maybe that's his sister on the pogo stick.
right. I
And
did
which the
too.
girl on the pogo stick is the Jurassic Park girl.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I
Which
guess
I
she.
thought, oh, that's good prep for Jurassic Park,
I
right?
know, right? Yeah, we need to do Jurassic Park. I thought the same thing too. I'm like, holy crap, they did a close up, and I'm like, well, she's just all about the scary running
She
girl. Like,
is. That's
she
what I
totally
mean.
must
Like
have
that
got
was a
the
good,
part.
yeah, that was a
She
good
must
prep
have
for
totally got
doing
the
Jurassic
part.
Park.
Yeah, she must have totally got the part because they're like, she was great in Tremors. You know what I mean? As the scared girl. Yeah, I assumed that he was the family of Mindy and I think Nancy, but we don't know that for sure. I was trying to remember when he's mocking Valentine and Earl on the porch when they're emptying the pooper. Was that Nancy and Mindy's porch?
No, no, it wasn't. And it wasn't. I thought maybe it could be the guy that was standing on the trailer. I
Oh, like
think
it's his
he
nephew or something,
did.
maybe.
He live in that trailer, or was he just on that trailer? Because it could, maybe that's where the
Oh.
relation is. I don't remember that
Oh, and
that
he was in
person's name.
town. But it's kind of great that they didn't care to tell you or like
No, yeah, you
make it.
don't
But he's
know.
like just the
You
annoying
see,
kid in
you
town.
see what you assume to be his home when they're cleaning out his
The
septic
pooper.
tank.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I
And
don't think
I
we.
didn't bother to go back and watch that scene because I feel like there was somebody else on that porch, or I didn't know if they had shown that location again in the town and created
Yeah,
a
I don't
sense of
think I saw
ownership.
anyone else on the porch besides him. And I really don't think that house looked the same as the house that the mom and girl
No,
ran to.
no, no, I don't think so either. So but I just again think it's fantastic. There's this archetype of
Yeah.
a character that just like no, they don't care. They're not trying to make him
Yeah,
fit. I love that the
it's
writer's
just
like,
a
doesn't matter.
character,
He's
right?
just an
Yeah, it's just
annoying
the pain
person,
in the butt. Yeah,
kid
that's
or whatever.
bugging everyone and
Yeah,
causing
just
havoc.
annoying everyone.
That just is there in this population of 14. I mean, there's almost 14 people in the movie, so I don't know who he would be related to. Like there's no one else.
Yeah, I don't know. I have
He's
no
just a
idea.
drifter.
Just a drifter, annoying kid in paradise
I
or whatever.
really thought it was interesting with this movie how they have this right with the two main characters dissatisfaction
Mm-hmm.
with life, and they want more, and they're kind of geared towards this, like, well, how can we make money, right? It's always about, oh, we sold the worm thing for $15, and now
Wang's like
Wayne, yeah, is making,
Walter. You're right. Yeah,
Walter's making $3
a
a
picture.
picture, and
The
then they're like, oh,
Polaroids.
how much do you think we could get off a big huge one, or or they're always talking about. And I think about that in life oftentimes, how we always kind of think, oh, I this would be better or that would be better, and the movie kind of makes a point of not allowing them to
Out.
escape this, right?
Yeah, it's
It
interesting.
keeps them there.
It's like that's where they belong.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I kind of had this thought of, while they're complaining, I was sitting here thinking, wow, that would be awesome to have a job where you just get
Small
to
town.
work out in this beautiful country, and you don't have to worry about anything besides just getting the job done. Like, that
Mm-hmm.
seems cool to me. I don't know how I do in that small of a town. Like,
Yeah, like 15 people.
yeah, like, what if you want to go see a movie? Like, what do you
Yeah,
do, right?
yeah, yeah. It was a little.
But I find it really interesting. They have this desire to escape, desire to have more. Um, and yet this town, I feel like, fulfills that for them,
Yeah.
right? It enables them to really become the, connected with these townspeople and become the heroes, and really get fulfillment out of it, when from the beginning it was only like torture to them. And I think, how many times in life are things torture that we try to escape, when maybe if we would stick with it and work through it, it could become a great growth and really blessing in our life.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also just that notion of, I mean, it's fine to dream big and want better things, but there's also a value and a wisdom of, being grateful for where you are.
Yeah,
There's because the grass is definitely greener on the other side. Like, you
sure.
can be like, I want to be over there. And there's benefits and blessings of being over there, but there's also a new set of problems, a new set of
Yeah.
challenges.
Well,
And that's
it's even a theme, for, like, with women, right? You had mentioned Valentine had, they kind of make this point of, oh, he likes the blonde haired
the perfect
girl, or
girl.
whatever, and there's all these,
Yeah.
and yet he has someone right in front of him and he can't even see.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the idea is,
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
we're so absorbed with what we don't have
Or
that
what
we
we
don't
think
see, yeah, what we
or what
think
we
we don't
think we
have.
want, you know
Or
what I mean?
yeah,
Or
perfect. What we think we want,
what we
that we
idealize will make us happy
exactly, and we
or
don't
bring
even
us
see what's
joy.
right in front of us. Like,
Yeah, to me, that's the
to
wisdom, right?
work,
That's
to be doing, like, the opening scene, there's this beautiful landscape, and it's like they don't even see it. And then there's this woman that's right in front of him, that's a smart, educated, beautiful woman, and he doesn't even
yeah,
see it
yeah.
until
Later, yeah.
they
So the
grow and
and
progress, right?
right, exactly. Which is what's great, which is why the movie is it which I mean, this is the key thing of like why shows are awesome and what other people don't get in different shows, and of what makes a show meaningful is to see the arc and the cultivation of capability or the development of attitude or that is what makes a story relatable and meaningful, or even we take something away from a story metaphorically that is enjoyable, and
Well, and
when a story lacks that or a movie or a show lacks that, it's empty, it's shallow, it doesn't mean
sure.
anything, you know what I mean?
Well, I think it's interesting because how quickly I forget that, right? And I go to, oh, I want this or I want that, and I miss what's right in front of me, like always striving to get the next thing
Yes.
instead of enjoying what I have. And there's really
Right,
that draw. And
right.
I think it's tough because a lot of times we don't, I think, really, as people, we don't focus on our mental health on a daily basis, right? We don't do routine things. I think with mental health, it's very reactive instead of proactive, where
Yeah.
we wait until we're in crisis moment to where it's like, oh man, I'm seeking so much for what I don't have that I'm losing my family, right? Or I'm
Well, and
losing my connections, instead of focusing on, what can I be doing to have good mental health daily? How can I
right,
be proactive? Am
right,
I doing breathing exercises or
right,
mindfulness
right,
exercises or
right.
meditation on
Which
a daily basis?
which is really what, is difficult, because clients always come typically into to the counseling um because of a particular crisis or problem.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of attention, but what we're trying to do is generalize that to their lives for them to see these greater patterns
When, yeah,
or things that
once,
are going on, and I think that's the hard sell, or I feel like it's the hard sell of like I'm trying to help people construct this notion of a larger view where you all right, like, hey, yeah, like I know this doesn't solve this immediate problem in a dramatic way, but cultivating gratitude helps you feel more peace in life. And
sure.
doing like two small things a day around self-care, up your resilience and learning to confront these challenging emotional things and developing the capability of having, thoughtful and empathetic and considerate conversations with your spouse or your loved ones cultivate understanding and connection, right? So we're trying to sell them on some of these wise, more low level, like not the big bang that fixes my problem, but we're trying to help them cultivate a more well-rounded aspect or approach to life, and it can be a really hard sell, right?
Definitely. And I think you're absolutely right. When people come in, it's almost all the time it's
A crisis,
focusing on de-escalating, right? So you
right?
de-escalate, get them stabilized. And then for me, and I'm sure for you, it's about teaching them, hey,
Hmm.
let's develop a routine
Yeah.
and then put that routine in place. And how often I have people that come back or clients that come back, a year later, and they're like, oh, and
Hmm.
my first question is, okay,
How are we doing with
what's your
this?
routine been like? Have
Right.
you been doing a breathing exercise every 2 hours, or have you been doing a
Yeah.
mindfulness? Have you been doing that
Right.
routine? And
No.
they're like, oh, I forgot,
Oh, I didn't keep doing it.
and it's
It's
really
so hard.
interesting.
The breathing thing, Michael, is so hard, right? Because like we talked about it in our first episode of how integral and important emotional
Hmm.
regulation and de-escalation is. And breathing is something we can all do, but it's like simpler than brushing your teeth. And
Really, breathing and meditation,
I can't
those
get people
two
to
are
do
really
it.
the base
I
of,
can't get people to do
yeah.
it. I can only get 30%. And I'll try the paradoxical intervention. Like, you're not going to do this. Like, I try to do like the
Well, and
Freudian,
it's
like opposite.
amazing because, in this movie, they're chasing, right? They're chasing this dream. They're chasing, chasing, chasing. And they don't really find satisfaction until they're pulled into the present moment by the graboids, right? They're
Hmm.
forced by this
Right. To
this
see the people
danger
they love. I
into the
love,
present moment. And that's
yeah.
like in life, it's like how do we pull ourselves into the present moment
Yeah.
without the
Yeah.
danger, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love how, much they care, and how much they get, particularly Valentine. I think we see it with, with each person that gets picked off in the
Yeah.
town, he gets more fired up of like, we've got to do something.
Yeah.
And even the foreshadowing of like Valentine never has a plan. Like Fred's like, oh, I always have a plan. He's like,
Uh-huh.
and he's like, wait, what day is it? Is it Wednesday?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm planned out 3 days. It's Wednesday, right? Like, I love that. But so you got Valentine, who I love his, because it's exactly what you said. They get pulled back, right? Because they've got this
Yeah.
plan where they've decided they're getting out of Dodge, but then as they see that there's something going on, it's like, wait, we can't leave. Like, this is our small little community,
Yeah.
and we need to do something.
Well, how characteristic of life, right? We tend, like, crisis is tends to open our eyes.
Yeah, yeah,
Instead of just having a good mental health routine on a regular
right.
basis so that we can have our eyes open all the time. And that's the struggle, even for me, even for you, right? We all struggle with that, trying to have that good routine in place so that we can always be present and open to what's right in front of us. And I think that's a really cool part of this movie, and in a lot of movies, right? Which is this idea that, hey, we have a lot right in front of us. That's what I loved about Goonies, right? Kind of
Yes,
this
that's the
idea of,
treasure,
oh
is
wow,
family
there's
and
this
friendship.
treasure right here. We don't need any, it's
Yeah,
right
you don't
here,
need
right?
your riches. Or you can go
Yeah.
get your riches, and then, you lose all your friends, or,
Yeah.
your relationships become complicated and compromised, or,
Yeah. Well, and I mean,
because of,
and don't get us wrong, there are certain situations, yes, you should get out of, right?
oh, of course.
You
Yes,
should,
of course.
you should get out. If
Of
you have
course.
real graboids right in front of you, yes, get out of
What
there.
a great metaphor, though. What a great metaphor, that there could be something in your life or your community that is grabbing you and consuming you, uh and trapping you. It's really
Yes.
interesting. I feel like I haven't quite worked it out, but I feel like this movie has tapped into a greater metaphor around, I mean, the fact that the town is called Paradise, and maybe it's what we're talking about, that
Is
it
it
really
paradise or
is.
perfection?
Oh, you're right. Perfection. Thank you.
For
Yeah, that's right.
which is
Perfection.
it perfection?
I
I
think it
couldn't
is. I
remember.
think
Oh,
it
okay.
is.
Okay.
But it relates to either word, right? But the
I love that it's
notion,
called perfection.
Right. Yeah. Because that plays into exactly what we're kind of talking about, that there is an
Uh-huh.
idyllic, if you can just embrace it, there is an idyllic aspect of their life, that it is
Yeah.
simple and that it is a small community where there seems to be, I mean, even though you've got the opportunistic, store owner, but he's good natured enough, and there is this interdependence in this community, which to me is something I long for. I long for uh I mean, I grew up in Philadelphia, the suburbs of Philadelphia, and Clarksville, the town that I live, is like 250,000 people and growing. It might be bigger than that, but there is a smallish town feel about it. There's a familiarity about it, that it's not like like that people are in range, or there is a community.
Well,
um
and I feel like that
and that's
that
just
might be
something
more
that
characteristic of where we live, right? Tennessee, I think there's certain parts of the country where you get a little more. In Vegas, it's not that way. I mean,
yeah,
when
Philly
there's
wasn't
like
that
a
way.
crisis or something, I feel like the city pulls together really
Sure.
well. But
Sure.
other than that, I like growing up there,
It
it
was an identity
yeah, I think
or
because it's so transient, like people are so in and out,
yeah,
you don't really,
it
but
feels
out
like
here
that.
it seems different. Like people stay. Like I have
Yeah.
neighbors who have lived here their whole lives, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Like that's
Yeah,
rare
Clarksville
in
has that
Vegas.
too. Well, you got a lot. Well, the interesting thing about Clarksville too is you get a lot of military people that have been all over to different military towns, and they
Mhm.
they really decide to come back to Clarksville. You've got a lot of military people that decide to retire here,
That's
or they
cool.
finish or they get out and they stay because it's just a really, a great place or whatever. And so I think that I wonder, because it just felt like there was more to the
I agree.
metaphor of perfection and this little town and the balance of ensembled, archetype characters or whatever that you've got there that really feels good. I think it's one of the things that's
Yeah.
enjoyable about the show. The retired doctor, you know,
Uh-huh.
the farm guy, even though they get picked off early in the
Oh
film.
man, and even with the retired doctor, like that scene always drove me nuts with the wife. She's just sitting in the car,
Well, she
and I'm
doesn't
just
know.
thinking,
Yeah.
just like open the door and jump out. Like
Like
jump out.
run.
The
Yeah.
the
Like
graboid's
run.
busy with the car.
Yeah.
Like jump out
Right.
and
Get
run
out of
away.
there. Yeah. Run
But I'm sure
away.
she's
Run
like,
away.
she's traumatized. Like she's
Yeah,
right
it's
in
just PT. Well, and you don't know what's going on. I mean, we've known
exactly.
because we've seen the movie, but like I remember the first time the movie, you don't kind of know what's going on. You don't because you don't
Yeah.
know yet, right? There's the
Yep.
mystique, which is the bummer about that with some of these shows is that you lose some of that because we've seen them a bunch, or so you're missing out on the novelty of the first time around or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just think it's the movie does that really well. I mean, really well. I mean, really,
Uh-huh.
really, really well. I mean, they did it perfectly well. And just pulling you into the story. The other thing that I think adds richness, or one of the things I think I really like this as a movie because it's a safe monster movie,
Sure.
because it's not like some of I didn't like as a kid, and I don't really favor these movies like horror movies or whatever, but I like the ones that there's a bit of horror or monster, but then there's all of this like humor as well, like the rock paper scissors, or even
Yeah.
there was something with one of the workers, like that are doing work or whatever when they're jackhammering or whatever. There was some kind of little jokey outtakey kind of thing. I don't remember what it was now, but I just remember being like, oh, there's this balance of horror and humor, which
Uh-huh.
is enjoyable. Or I definitely noticed it with the preppers. Like one with the preppers, I love that Reba McEntire is in this movie.
Oh, she's
This is
great
hilarious.
in
She
it.
like showed up and she's so good. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, I
Yeah.
didn't even know like as a kid that like, oh, this is Reba.
Both of
But
them. Both of them. I think
oh, they're hilarious.
what
Yeah.
is he
Michael
Bert?
Gross. Yeah, he's Bert. Yeah, Michael
Yeah.
Gross is the actor's
Both of
name.
them are
Or
great.
perfect. Yeah, I love how he's
Well, and
all
he
like,
continues to play that character throughout the sequels.
oh, does he?
And he's really the mainstay, I feel like,
Oh, that's cool.
of the franchise. And he continues to play because that character, that role is such a fun part of this, right?
He's
the
like,
prepper who actually has the prepping fulfilled, right? It's like,
yeah,
oh
well,
my goodness, I actually can use all this stuff I
know,
have.
he's all excited. That scene where they're in the basement unloading on the graboid is so hilarious.
And then I
they're
love
like,
it. They're
like
up on the
pulling out
roof.
elephant guns and bazookas and AKs and
I love when they get up on the
ARs
roof
and
they're just
handguns.
like,
And I love that they're just like looking at each other and like grabbing another weapon and throwing it at each other. Like
they're making bombs. They've got
so
like
good.
this is their
Yeah, they're like
time,
finally.
right? This is
Well, and it's a wonderful metaphor too, right? Because it's like you can be prepared, but you can't be prepared for everything. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, and that's the thing that's just such a fantastic lesson is like, yeah, be prepared and you can, but something will happen in your life that will be not what you anticipated,
Yeah. There's always room for growth, right? Regardless of how prepared we are.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, that's the necessity of life, which I've even wondered, I was pondering this kind of like religiously, if there is really ever, we have this notion in faith or Christian faith of like paradise or heaven, and it's like I wonder if it really is even what we think it is, because you need something to push against, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Maybe it's more subtle, maybe it's not as diabolical as the
Sure.
world
Yeah.
we
Maybe it's
face
less
now.
painful, but there's still
Right.
opportunity for growth and
Yeah, there
progression. That's
has
what
to
I think
be.
too.
Yeah, there has
Yeah.
to be, right? Because it
It
doesn't
makes
work.
sense to me.
I mean, it would be nice for a minute, like it'd be a nice vacation, but then it would be boring, like, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't have anything. So I was when I was doing some research on this movie, I came across an article which I thought was hilarious, and it listed the life lessons that we learned from Tremors.
Oh, cool. Do you have it?
Yeah, can I
Okay, go
outline it
for it.
for you?
Yeah,
It's
I want to hear
hilarious.
it.
Yeah. So the first one was, and we can give. It was from the Independent, some local newspaper somewhere. I think it was an old. I don't know if it was. I think there was a lot of press around like the 30th anniversary, which I think was a while ago, like maybe 6 years ago or something. But anyway, so the first point was trust rural people who are prepared. Though I added the idea that you can't be prepared for everything, right?
Sure.
2, wildlife can be dangerous. Graboids are no joke. Wildlife can be gross. Like, yeah, the monsters were
Sure.
like slimy and
Yeah, and they
really
kept talking how much they smelled, right?
Yeah, they did make that
They
point.
smelled
Like, what is
bad.
that
Like they smell
smell?
worse alive than dead.
What a great line. So this point we've talked a lot about, but that like it's a great reflection of common people, that I've, the article made the point that I've met every person that's, uh represented in this movie.
Yeah.
One one way in and one way out is a bad idea. Trapped.
Yep. It's one way in, one way out. They're trapped, or it's over a mountain.
Or over a mountain, right?
You need a 4x4 to get out.
which of course the Tremor figure, or sorry, the Graboid
Oh, I
figured
love
out
it.
and
Yeah.
sabotaged their
Yeah.
awesome all-terrain vehicle. Ripped up the tires and everything. 90s movies are a crash course on survival. Quick guns, thinking on your feet, decoys, running fast, which is really cool. How they're all kind of like working together. It was interesting that they all got like stuck on different things. I thought for sure, because I didn't remember, I thought for sure that the annoying kid was going to get killed. I was like, surely they're going to kill the annoying kid. Like,
no, he survives.
But
Instead,
he
they kill
survives.
Walter, which is sad.
Yeah,
was
Walter
sad
was
for me.
fantastic. I did too.
I
because
just
I didn't
like
remember.
him. I like that actor a lot.
I do too.
But
I did too.
he's very nostalgic to me, right? Because
Right.
you see him in Big Trouble Little China, right? And which is very nostalgic.
Well, he's done so many shows.
He has. And so yeah, I always kind of wondered as a kid, I was like, man, they have these opportunities, especially when the two graboids go over to the prepper's house, right? Reba and Bert.
I thought to myself,
I was like, why don't they all join together, like in one area?
Right. I just thought to myself, but I guess under the duress of people dying, it's fair that they didn't like think it all out,
Sure.
quicker or whatever. or
Yeah, and that's what happens, right? In crisis, is your mind struggles to
yeah.
process the same way as we would
Hmm.
process from an outside perspective.
Right. So it's fair that was like because I started thinking of all kinds of different things that they could have done to decoy or to get away or
Which is how movies always are,
right.
right?
Yeah, of
Because
course.
we're just in the audience
Well,
enjoying.
one of the things that the movie did really well, though, which I think it really deserves credit for. Like a lot of times in a movie where you've got a foe like this, it's like they discover the way to kill the monster, and then
Yeah.
that's the only way they kill the monster. The cool thing in this show was
Yeah.
every monster was killed differently, which
Yes.
was really interesting and kept you on your toes versus like, okay, we know now what to do, so now let's plan to do that thing.
Yeah, I loved
Instead,
how the monster, like the graboids, evolved also, right?
yes,
Where
they did.
the one that was, what did they call him? The one that had one of the things torn off by the axle. They had a name
Oh,
for that one,
did.
and I can't remember
Stumpy
what.
or something
Yeah,
like that,
Stumpy
or
maybe.
I don't
Valentine named him,
remember.
I think,
Yeah, he totally did. I
and
forgot that.
that one was the one that was smart, right?
Right,
And plant. I love how that one creates the trap at the end where
right.
you like what do they call that where it's you can't see the pit? There's a name for those types of traps,
Oh,
where
I
they're
don't know.
they make a pit and they cover it and then you can fall in. I can't think of the name,
Oh,
but
yeah, I don't
I
know.
love how that graboid makes this trap and then traps the tractor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then they're stuck.
And
And
then
there
the
was only
only way
one
they
at that
kill it,
point, right?
right, is by not by tricking it, but by running over and then forcing it to fly out through the canyon and die.
Well, because
I love
yeah,
that.
because he threw the bomb behind them,
Yes,
which
because they knew
Earl,
they had to, because it was
yeah,
that graboid was too smart.
right, yeah, Earl and the other, the scientist girl didn't pick up on what he was doing,
No, they had no idea.
which was
And
really
I'm sure
cool.
they're worried, right? Because this is Valentine. Like he
Right.
doesn't think
Yeah, he
ahead,
doesn't
right?
think ahead. Right, right, right. Which again is another one of those
Yep.
things that
But
they
he
did with
thought ahead.
foreshadowing. But he
Yep.
did. He learned to
Yep.
do it.
It's great.
He cultivated that ability and
But
was
I
like
agree. I
figured it out.
love that they're all killed. It makes the movie entertaining and it makes the movie quick. And the movie's not really that long. I think it's like
No, it's like
90 minutes or
no,
something.
that's what I'm saying. Like the movie was like an economy. Like it
Yeah.
really, compared to the other
You
movie
get a
that we're doing
lot,
today, you
right?
get a
It's
lot.
quick.
Yeah,
It's in there and you get a lot in that 90 minutes. It's really
yeah.
fun.
So one of the other lessons was guns. That's just like just like guns,
Have
especially
lots of
elephant
guns
guns.
and
Yeah.
ammo.
That's right. Yeah. Elephant guns are a good idea, and knowing how to make bombs could come in handy.
Yep.
And
All you
then
need is normal household chemicals. Is that what Bert says?
yeah, yep.
Just a
Just
knowledge of normal household
how's that?
chemicals or something like that.
That's awesome. So great. And then of course, we all needed Kevin Bacon in our midst.
Valentine. Yeah.
Yeah, we need
I
somebody that's
love that his name is Valentine. Like, I love that.
yeah.
And did you notice his belt buckle's a heart?
No, I didn't.
Did
I
you
don't think
notice that? I
I did
love it.
not pick up
I
the
don't
mullet.
know what the whole Valentine play. Just maybe that he's this womanizer type
Well,
character in the
he thinks
beginning.
that's the Uncle
He thinks
that's
he
the
does,
Uncle
yeah.
Rico version of like he thinks he's
Yeah.
romanticizing these girls, but maybe not.
Yeah, and
You know,
Earl's like, uh-huh.
yeah, sure you are,
Earl's like,
buddy.
dude, there's this awesome lady right in front
Right
of
in
you.
front of you. Why don't you stop idealizing? She's got to have blonde hair. She's got to have this. She's got to have this. It's like, yeah,
Well,
you're
and I
gonna
love
find
that she
that.
has the sunscreen on her
Yeah, on her
nose,
nose.
right?
Yeah, you're gonna.
Throughout the beginning of the movie.
Well, the thing that's so Uncle Rico about that is it's like you're never gonna meet that girl in the town of
Oh
perfection.
no.
That's the
No,
thing that's
not I
hilarious.
highly doubt even in the town. What's the town they're trying to get to? It starts with a B. I can't think of the name
Oh
of that
yeah,
town.
yeah,
That's where they're trying to get,
yeah.
because there's an actual police force at that town. But
Which
even there,
they're gonna take care of those graboids.
yeah. But yeah, exactly. What are they going to? Well, at that point, they thought it was a murder on the loose, right? And that's why they were headed
Initially.
out there.
Oh, I guess
And
so.
then
Yeah,
that's
initially.
when they were on the horses to go. And then they found out, oh,
Uh-huh.
it's actually a worm thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's when
When
they came back, and then all these things happen.
yeah. Which is fantastic that there was. Well, and I guess that's one of the things that gives the movie dimension because it's like they're cattle, like it's like they're cattle ranchers, like they
Or maybe
know
they
how to do
knew,
that.
or did they
It's like
get
a Western
attacked
feel.
by the graboid on the truck before the horses?
They did. They did.
So they
They
knew there was
did.
something else besides
Oh
a
yeah, I
murderer, I
guess
think.
yes, they did. You're right. Yeah, it had evolved
Yeah,
already at
you're
that
right.
point.
So what are they? I don't know what they're going to get the police, or maybe they're just trying to get more help. Like, hey, we
Yeah,
need
or
more
just get
help.
out of town, or just like, hey, yeah, I think it was the idea, like get out of town, like get a helicopter or something like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean?
This was a fun one though. I love Tremors. I can't even think how many times I've seen it. I've seen all the sequels, but not enough to remember them. I know that they're 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 bad, but they're still fun. And there was one that came out just recently, like within the last 2 years. It was the last one they did
I
before
haven't seen
Bert
any.
passed away, and that one has
Oh,
John Heater in it.
oh, does it
The last one,
really? Oh, I
yeah,
might have to
yeah,
watch it just
Napoleon
because John
Dynamite.
Hitter's in.
I enjoy it. I think it's on Netflix right now. Maybe
Yeah,
it's Shrieker Island. I think it's
I'll have
called
to check
Tremors
it out.
Shrieker Island or
I'm gonna have
something.
to check it out.
But
You know,
fun movie.
one of the other things that like I think pulled me into the suspense of it is it totally. I don't know if you picked up on this early in the movie. Like it totally had like this Jaws feel. You know what I mean? Because they
Yeah,
followed the camera like they do the dun 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 dun
yeah,
dun.
they do. They
They
do
played into
that.
that really well as well.
Yeah, I love the underground where they show the worm, like the graboid going
Oh,
through
like
the underground real
yeah,
quick.
yeah. Well, they're just the special effects in the movie are
Yeah,
fantastic. I mean, just they're just classic older film where you just
that
accept it.
holds up pretty
I
well.
think it holds up, dude. I
Yeah,
want to go watch it again. Like I want to watch
yeah,
it
it's
with
a fun
all of
one.
my because I just watched it with Nick, and so I was kind of bummed that I didn't watch it with all the kids because I think it would
It'd
have
be
just been
interesting to see what your
hilarious.
teenagers
I think
think
they
of
would
it.
have loved it. Like it's such a great show. Like, well, the thing about movies like this is if you, you know, this is a really interesting thing I think that's happening with movies where because of CGI and everything's getting like so realistic, and movies
Sure,
go for that. But like watching these older movies in the last 6 months since we've been doing this podcast or whatever, like I appreciate that it's like you make this agreement with the movie to suspend reality. You know what I mean?
sure.
Because it's like, why are movies supposed to be real? Like
Well,
that
and I
doesn't have to be
love
a
the
thing. Like,
puppetry and the animatronics, right? Like
yeah,
there's something to that even like it's fun to see the CGI. That's neat, but then there's just something about seeing
yeah,
something real
yeah.
being
That's just more
filmed.
fun. Yeah, it's more
Yeah.
fun. It's more
It feels
enjoyable.
more fantastical. What's the right word? Like it
Yeah.
feels more like, oh, this is something
Well, it seems more
like
fun.
like
I think
fantasy like to me.
yeah, I think it's more enjoyable and fun versus we're trying to make this real. Like I think
Yeah,
that that would be a really interesting discussion, or I wonder if I think movie producers or teams should be thinking about is like we don't have to make everything look real. Like maybe
sure.
like I mean that's one of the things, you know, when you go to a show, I don't know if you've done a lot of going to see theater. You know, it's one of the things like when you go to a show, you accept that that the theater has limitations and that they're doing these different things to create representations of a thing versus trying to
Sure.
make it look like the thing. And that's part of the enjoyment of the show, that you're going along with them on this, and the fact that a representation of a thing pulls you
Well,
in
and it's
versus
really
showing you all the detail of a thing.
well,
You know
which
what I
is
mean?
what's beautiful about reading. And what I love
Yeah,
about
sure.
reading is
Mhm.
it requires you to bring yourself into the world and imagine things and create that reality. And I think that that's something that puppetry does a little bit more for me, is brings me in and helps me imagine a little bit more. But I loved it. It's a fun one. It's always been a fun one, and it's one I've seen.
Dude, there's
I
so
can't
many
even count how
fun
many times I've
things.
seen.
There's so many fun things. Like one of the things that I don't know if you noticed in the opening scene, my wife and I commented about this when they're doing the fencing, that like Kevin Bacon's not very good with the hammer. I don't know if that was
Oh, it takes
intentional
them like
or not.
20
Yeah.
hammers, yeah, to get
To like get
the
the
nail
thing
in.
down on the U clamp thing or whatever over
Well, they
the
kind of, it's funny because they kind of do, like, I think if I remember right, Kevin Bacon kind of does a look like he does like a second take or something. And I don't know if that was intentionally supposed to be in there, but it made it funny because it's almost
yeah.
like he's like, why did that take me so many hammers?
Yeah, like right.
So many strikes to get it in.
I know it's hilarious. Yeah, it's a great show. So many fun things to talk about and enjoy, and definitely one worth watching. I've got to check out the other ones. I've heard that they're all terrible, but I've got to maybe at least check them out.
They're worth it. Yeah, they're worth a watch.
So? Okay.
It's like Sharknado. You just kind of have to keep watching them. All right. Thanks all. It was fun.
All right. Adios.
Bye-bye.